I messed up big time, and because I was selfish, I lost the only man I've ever truly loved. The idea of hurting him breaks my heart in a way I can't even put into words. What's even worse is knowing he's gone from my life for good. I had hoped we could work through my screw-ups together. I had a great partner and friend, but I stupidly threw it all away for meaningless hookups with random guys. I was only 20 when I met my future husband, Donnie, at the library. He gave me a book and the rest is history. So, I was just browsing the shelf at the store when this dude Donnie started talking to me and we ended up exchanging numbers. Donnie wasn't exactly a looker, but he had this charm that totally hooked me. What began as a friendship quickly turned into a romantic thing. He was my first everything, first date, first kiss, first love, first time getting intimate. But I wasn't his first, which kinda made me feel insecure. When he proposed, I felt happy but also scared that I might be making a mistake. I was unsure about choosing a life partner because I didn't have anyone else to compare him to. That's when I brought up the idea of having an open relationship, hoping it would give me more experience before fully committing. I wanted to make sure he was the right one for me. Donnie's reaction was strong. He strongly rejected the idea, saying he didn't want to share me and saw me as his future wife. His words really touched me and made me forget about the open relationship idea. I agreed to marry him wholeheartedly, and our wedding was a small and intimate celebration. So, the first year of our marriage was awesome, surrounded by our fam and all that. But as time went on, I started to have doubts. I was worried that being married meant I was missing out on all the fun sexual stuff my friends were talking about. I felt like I had nothing to add to those convos. I finally brought it up with Donnie, kinda nervous about it. I hinted at maybe having an open relationship, but his reaction showed me that pushing the issue could mean losing him. I tried to bring it up, but it didn't go so well. We were talking about how to make our sex life more exciting, but when I brought it up, he got mad and said he would leave right away. I felt like he was being unfair, especially since he had been with other women before me. Why shouldn't I have the same freedom? A few months later, I brought up the topic again and got the same harsh response. I have to admit, it was selfish of me to marry him while secretly having feelings for other men. I let my mind wander, foolishly thinking I could still keep Donnie's love. Man, I really hate myself for screwing over the most important person in my life and giving in to temptation. There's usually something that sets off our primal instincts, and for me, it was Bob. He was this big, muscular guy who always caught the eye of women. Bob ended up being my boss when he got moved to my department, so we had daily meetings. He was in his 30s and had that confident, alpha male vibe. He's older than both me and my husband, and is always flirting with me, talking softly like he's trying to charm me. It's hard to stay professional around him without feeling a bit giddy. One night, Bob asked me to grab a drink after work, and I couldn't tell if he was really into me or just being polite. My mind was racing, but I couldn't say no. We went to a bar nearby, and I ended up having more drinks than I planned. Our conversation went from formal to more casual. From heart-to-heart talks, I told him I wanted more than just being with one guy. I spilled everything, from the idea of an open marriage where you can do your thing without feeling bad, to my crush on Bob. Bob asked if I talked about this with my husband, and I said yes, but he didn't see eye to eye with me. He even said he'd bounce if I went for it. Bob then said I shouldn't ask for permission, but instead just tell my husband it's happening. He proposed we make our marriage open. Letting me do my own thing without needing Donnie's okay. Looking back, Bob was just a mess, giving me awful advice and saying it was for my own good. Now I see he just wanted to be with me, but at that time I was just trying to justify my feelings. That night Bob took me to a hotel and made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. Donnie made me feel that way every day, but being treated like that by another guy made me feel like a lovesick teenager all over again. When I got back home, my husband was passed out on the couch, like he was waiting for me to come back from work. I sneaked off to the bathroom to get rid of the smell of booze and some strange cologne. Then I woke Donnie up and told him I needed to talk. He said he had some big news to share too, but let me go first. His face lit up at first, all happy and excited as he listened closely. But then it suddenly turned dark. I was firm in my decision and presented it as a done deal. I wanted to hang out with other guys and hoped he would be okay with it. I crave the attention and affection from other men, like how Donnie used to treat other women. I can't believe the stupid things I said to someone who loved me. Those words still bother me and I get emotional whenever I think about that moment. I was an idiot. He just looked at me for a while, then shook his head in disappointment. After sitting in silence for what felt like forever, he mumbled, "Well, if that's what you want, then fine by me." He stood up and walked out without saying another word. Hey, so like, the day after he told me his good news, I was super excited and hugged my boss. We ended up hooking up on his desk, and that was just the beginning. Bob became my new man after Donnie, but definitely not my last. I started going out with colleagues on Fridays to their fave pub, and sometimes woke up on Saturdays next to some random dude I never saw again. I turned into a bit of a player, thinking Donnie was cool with it. I kept seeing different guys almost every day, until reality hit me after 2 months. One Friday, I realized it. Bob came to get me ready for work, thinking my husband had already gone as usual. I was hoping we could sneak in a quickie before heading to the office, but Donnie was still at home when I got back. My husband opened the door to find Bob there with a bunch of flowers. Their conversation was drowned out by the sound of the shower, but when I came out, they were chatting like old pals. Donnie was cool as a cucumber, not showing any signs of being mad, upset, or disappointed. He had a smile or a frown on his face all the time, so I thought he was totally cool with our open marriage. I was so clueless and dumb, I didn't see that I was setting myself up for disaster. On my way to work, Bob joked about how into the whole open relationship thing my husband was. It was Friday and Bob and I got a fancy room with a great view of the city. We had a wild night of passion. When I got home on Saturday, I could tell something was off. There was a weird silence in the air. My husband and I usually don't work on weekends, and he always has his favorite music blasting from the speakers. I peeked into our home gym, but he wasn't on the treadmill like he usually is on Saturday mornings. Trying to feel some sense of normalcy, I went to the kitchen where he usually makes coffee on the counter. I saw my favorite mug, which made me smile and reminded me of our life together. I grabbed the mug excited for a sip, but it was empty. Yo, there was this letter in an envelope that I can't quite remember the exact words of, but I've kept it as a painful reminder of how I messed up my once beautiful marriage for some flings on the side. I'm really disappointed in myself for making such dumb decisions, but losing Donnie is my biggest regret. The letter said Donnie was off to Canada for a month on a business trip, and when he got back, he was gonna start divorce proceedings. He even said he regretted marrying me and wasting so much time. Hey, so next to the letter I found a plane ticket and passport with my name on it. And on the back of the ticket was a message reminding me of the news I told you about 2 months ago. Turns out my company is willing to cover our accommodations in Canada and even offered you a job. But then I found his wedding ring at the bottom of the mug and my world fell apart. I spent the rest of the day just staring at that mug, unable to eat or drink, feeling completely lost. And then things got worse. I fell into a deep depression as my life started to completely unravel the very next day. So, following this script, Donnie's buddy showed up to haul away all of his stuff. I was bawling my eyes out as I watched him and some movers take almost everything that belonged to my hubby. Donnie's friend gave me a dirty look and called me a disgrace. His words really hurt back then, but they sting even more now. Ever since Donnie left, my place has felt super empty and lonely. To try and forget the pain of losing my love, I've been jumping from one fling to another, from one bed to the next. So, after I was trying to ignore the pain I was feeling deep down, then, barely a week later, everything fell apart. Bob, out of nowhere, put in a transfer request. When I asked him why, thinking we had something special going on, he just coldly said he was moving on now that the excitement was gone. I felt completely betrayed. And to make things worse, my new boss immediately hated me. My personal life was causing me so much stress that it was affecting my work, and not long after, I got fired for another reason. Man, my parents and friends totally ditched me after Donnie's friend blabbed about my wild behavior. They didn't want anything to do with someone who cheated on their marriage for another guy, calling me a slut. In no time, I lost everyone who mattered to me. A month later, Donnie came back from his trip and started the divorce process. I tried so hard to beg and explain to him, even suggested couples therapy, but he wouldn't listen. Why I know, I went to therapy thinking I might have been a sex addict, but he shut me down completely. By the time we officially split, I was left without our cozy home, without my supportive partner, and without anyone who gave a damn about me. I still hated myself for screwing everything up. But enough of that sad tale, on to the next juicy one. My wife, Mona, wasn't your typical bombshell at 28, but man, her body was banging, made up for any flaws in her face. I loved her, she was smart, funny, and I trusted her with everything. Mona was an environmental biologist for the state, while I'm Jim, a 30-year-old civil engineer working for a consulting firm. We made good money together and bought a nice 3-bedroom house last year. We met through work, dated for 6 months, and we got hitched in a church wedding and promised to stay faithful, respect each other, and trust each other before tying the knot. We were all about building a strong foundation for our marriage, and we even talked about having kids once we moved into our house a year ago. Then Mona became friends with our neighbor Sally, who's around the same age and divorced. They started hanging out, going shopping, and seeing movies together. I didn't really care though, I was happy chilling at home doing my own thing. Sure thing. Here's the colloquial translation. When Mona was away, Sally got her into the local library board. They started off with quick monthly meetings, but they soon turned into long 4-hour sessions twice a month. A while back, Mona said they needed more time to set up a new computer system at the library, and since she knows her stuff, they asked her to work with the head librarian on it. It all made sense to me, so I didn't question it. Hey, remember that time Mona seemed all stressed out after that long board meeting? When I asked her what was up, she said the head librarian was a pain to deal with and needed special treatment. And then there was that time I noticed her hair was damp at the back, like she had either been sweating or showered somewhere. But why would she be sweating or showering during a meeting? I had a feeling something was off. I didn't even shower or wash my face at the sink when I got home because I was waiting up for her. I could smell soap on her skin, but it wasn't her usual bath soap. I wondered if she had showered at a motel. These thoughts made me less interested in being intimate with her tonight. Not tonight, honey, I'm too tired. The meeting was long and we both have work tomorrow. Okay, sweetie, get some rest. She turned away from me and faced her side of the bed. As I was falling asleep, I thought it was weird that she didn't want to get intimate during her most fertile time. She always turned down sex after her library meetings, blaming it on being tired. These patterns made me even more suspicious. Maybe she didn't want me to see any signs of her being loose after we had sex. We had talked about starting a family, being married for 5 years and waiting until we were financially stable. She had stopped working recently and I had just received Me and my wife were thinking about having a baby, so she stopped taking her birth control pills a week ago. But I got worried that if we split up and she was with someone else, I didn't want to be on the hook for child support. So, I needed some time to think things over. I couldn't sleep, thinking about what to do next. At first, I thought maybe I should hold off on getting frisky with her. If I brought up the possibility of her cheating, she'd probably just deny it and laugh it off. I needed solid evidence, so I had to hold off on getting intimate to gather the proof. But if there was a chance her man got her pregnant tonight, she might be down to hook up with me to throw me off. After weighing all the options, I came up with a plan that could work. If she had raw-dogged it with someone else tonight, she'd probably be itching to get it on with me ASAP to make sure she wasn't ovulating. To pull off my plan, I'd have to act fast. I gotta be gone for at least a week, maybe even longer. I figured faking a business trip would be the easiest way to pull this off since I hardly ever travel for work. But when I do, it usually means being away from home for a week or more, which works perfectly for my plan. Now, what else do I need to figure out? Oh yeah, who's her lover? How long have they been having an affair? Where do they usually meet up? If their rendezvous coincides with a library board meeting, it could mean her lover is also on the board. I need to dig deeper, so I quietly snuck out of bed. I went downstairs and found her purse, where women usually keep their valuable stuff. It seemed like a good place to start looking for clues. While going through her credit cards, I found one in her maiden name, Mona Spencer. It was from a bank we don't usually use, and I couldn't help but wonder why she still had it. I thought she got rid of all her old cards before we got married, but apparently she kept one hidden in a pocket. I also found a business card for a guy named Derek Matthews. So, get this, the person in charge at our library ain't who I thought she was. I snooped around and saw she's been in touch with some guy named Dirk a lot on her cell phone. Looks like they've been at it for a while. No text though, so I figure they've been talking on the phone. I snuck everything back into her bag and decided to check her computer for any messages. After digging around a bit more, I discovered that she had a secret email stash with some security know-how. I was able to get past her defenses and found a goldmine of messages between her and Derek going way back to when she first started going to those late meetings with him. These messages spilled the beans that they had been meeting up at the Red Roof Inn near the highway interchange. Some of the stuff they were up to was definitely stuff she never did with me. In one email, they even talked about me and Derek's wife, although their words weren't all that nice. Both of them said they loved us, but the more I read, the angrier I got. I saved all their emails in my own files, planning to print them out later. I went back upstairs to one of the extra bedrooms where I kept my clothes in the closet, since the walk-in closet in the master bedroom was reserved for her stuff. I grabbed my suitcase and garment bag, packing them like I was getting ready for a business trip that was about to happen. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning and got dressed like I was about to go on a trip. I went into our bedroom and woke up Mona, who looked confused. She asked me, "Why are you up so early, Jim? Why are you dressed?" I told her, "I have a plane to catch, sweetheart. I didn't get a chance to tell you last night, but I got a call from work saying they urgently need someone to do a survey on some projects out of state. I'll grab something to eat at the airport, so don't worry about breakfast." She looked at me, trying to understand the news. "Okay, honey. How can I reach you if I need to?" "Just call me on my cell phone," I replied. "See you later, babe." I gave her a kiss and grabbed my bags, heading downstairs. Then I heard a thud and some fast footsteps behind me. She popped up at the top of the stairs, calling out, "Jim. What about making a baby? We were supposed to try this weekend." "We'll have to wait until next month, sweetheart. I'll give you a call when I reach my first stop." I heard a loud cry as I opened the garage door and hopped in my car. I quickly drove off, making sure my phone was turned off as I hit the road. 2 hours later, I finally made it to my dad's retirement crib by the lake out in the boonies. Pop was a widower, living solo dolo. Even though my visit was out of the blue, he wasted no time whipping up some brekkie for us while sipping on his go-to strong coffee. I spilled the beans about what went down with Mona, and he was all ears, feeling for me big time. See, my folks had 2 boys and I reckon he low-key wished for a daughter, so Mona kinda filled that void for him. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that she did me dirty like this. Dude, I don't even know what to say. Mom and I were solid, never thought she'd cheat. Gotta take this slow, don't make any hasty decisions. Dad said. Got it, I'll go back to the city tomorrow and talk to my lawyer, Ed Willie. Need to figure out my legal options. Ed's a good guy, won't lead me astray. We've used him for years. All right, Dad, your coffee is bomb. Hey, your omelets are always bomb. If you end up cooking for yourself, you can practice more, he said with a little humor. Around 9 o'clock that morning, I called my office and talked to my boss. He agreed to tell Mona that I was away on a business trip and could only be reached on my cell. He even told the receptionist to say the same thing to anyone asking about me. I asked for a week off, which he approved. When I checked my messages, I saw that Mona had tried to reach me. She hit me up 4 times telling me to call her ASAP. I decided to wait till around noon to hit her back, and when I did, she sounded kinda worried. She was like, "Where you at, babe? Can I come fly out to see you this weekend?" I was like, "Sorry, babe, I'm on the road and not sure when I'll be able to find a place to crash. Let's plan something for next month." Then I said I had to go because the guys were calling me. She said, "I love you," before hanging up. My dad. The guy who was listening just shook his head. The next day, I set up a meeting with Ed Willie. When I got back to town, I talked to him about my problem. "Good to see you, Jim. What can I help you with?" Ed asked. Ed, my wife has been cheating on me with another guy and I want to know what my legal options are. Over the next half hour, we talked about what I could do, and Ed suggested that the easiest way to get a divorce would be to claim irreconcilable differences. If I want to divorce my wife for cheating, I gotta prove she's been unfaithful, which could be expensive and hard to do without kids and her making bank. The money side of things would probably just be a 50-50 split of our stuff. I asked if she might be pregnant by the other guy, but luckily I won't have to pay child support. I thanked the guy for his help and said I'd. So, I had a meeting with Ed and then a few days later, I went to the main library with no real plan. I was just wandering around when I saw an office door that said Head Librarian. I grabbed a magazine and sat down where I could see the office door, waiting for about 30 minutes. Eventually, the door opened and out came a guy who looked about my age. He wasn't exactly good looking, which made me wonder why she would risk our marriage for him. I left and headed to a nearby electronics store. I went to the store and bought a fancy voice recorder. Then I went to the Red Roof Inn where they were meeting, got a room for the night. After that, I went back home and checked our computer. The emails between them hinted that she might be pregnant from their last hookup, especially with me being away recently. This could expose her cheating and he might end up being the dad. They were starting to get worried. I made copies of the emails. Got some texts saved for proof, then went back to my motel room after dinner. I just chilled and watched TV for a bit, then switched it off and laid in bed deep in thought. I was trying to figure out why she did what she did, putting our marriage at risk. I thought we were good, with all our love and plans for the future, like starting a family and growing old together. But she just threw it all away. Our sex life was great when we first got married, so I don't get why she would do something like that while I was on a business trip. Having sex with him could have gotten her pregnant, and when she decided to let him father her child, I thought she must have really cared about him. I was so emotional and started crying as I thought about all the time we had spent together. Even though we had some good times, the breakup was just too painful. I finally realized that even if she didn't get pregnant by him, I couldn't forgive her. It seemed like divorce was the only option. There was only one solution, but I knew I had to confront her first and I wasn't looking forward to it. Around 8 o'clock, I used my cell phone to call home and talk to her. It was clear from her voice that she had been crying, so I asked her what was wrong. "You don't sound good, sweetheart. Are you sick?" "Oh Jim, I just want you home." "Well, I'll try to fix things as fast as I can. Hang in there. Why don't you go talk to Sally? I'm sure she can cheer you up." I had a feeling that Sally might have been involved in my wife's cheating, so I. "Hey babe, come home soon. Love you. Bye sweetheart." I hope she noticed I didn't say "I love you" when I signed off at 11 o'clock that night. I went to the motel office and saw a young guy working by himself. I was glad it wasn't a female clerk because she might have said no to what I was about to ask. After chatting for a bit, I offered the guy $100 considering his low pay. The deal was too good to pass up, so he agreed to give me a list of times my wife and Derek had been at the motel. I told him my wife's maiden name and the date I thought their affair started. I figured they would use her maiden name on the credit card I found in her purse to avoid getting caught. He said he would work on it that night and have the list ready for me in the morning. I went to bed feeling sad and had a rough night's sleep. Early the next morning, I went back to the motel. Office dude had the list all set for me, just like I thought. They had checked in after the library meetings. I showed him a pic of my wife and he remembered her because she used her credit card to register. They usually only stayed in the room for about an hour or so before taking off in separate cars. He said it's a common thing with cheating spouses is seen. After grabbing some breakfast, I went back to my old man's place. Spent the rest of the week fishing, and on Thursday I gave Ed Willie a call and asked him something. He said he'd get the divorce papers ready soon, so I kept calling home every night pretending to be somewhere else. Mona sounded more and more sad each time I called, and I started to feel sorry for her a little bit. But I couldn't let her off the hook, I wanted my revenge. I came back home on a Friday afternoon while she was still at work. From their recent emails, it looked like the affair was coming to an end, probably because she was scared of being pregnant. It seemed like I wouldn't need the tape recorder anymore, so I could return it and get my money back. I had gathered enough proof of her cheating from their emails, so I started printing out 2 copies of their messages, thinking that Derek's wife could use it to know about their affair. My next dilemma was whether to talk to Mona right away or wait to see if she got pregnant. When Mona came home from work, she ran into my arms with tears in her eyes, saying, "Oh Jim, I missed you so much, sweetheart." "What's wrong?" "Something went down like a plumbing problem." I was like, "No way." But then I just realized how much I love and missed you after you left. As soon as we finished dinner, I was ready to take you to bed. If you're that excited, maybe I should go away more often. Nah, I don't want you to leave me again, babe. Let's go grab some food and then come back home for some quality time. That sounds like a plan, I said with a smile, noticing her tears. I felt like a jerk. We ended up having a surprisingly chill dinner at our favorite spot. When we got back home, she started taking off her clothes as she went up the stairs to our bedroom. By the time I got to the bedroom, she was already lying on the bed, calling out for me. I could see in her eyes that I was going to miss her, but I couldn't stand the thought of sharing her with anyone else. She had always been mine, and now she wasn't. I knew she was expecting me to make love to her, just in case she was pregnant. But I couldn't help but think that it didn't really matter if she was pregnant or not. It was over, and I needed to tell her. I sat up on the edge of the bed and said, "Mona, we need to talk. I can't keep pretending to imagine you with Derek." I heard her gasp, and when I looked at her, she was staring back at me in horror. "It's done, Mona. I'm gonna file for divorce." She suddenly got up and ran to the bathroom. I went downstairs, poured myself a drink, and waited for her to come down. She probably wants to salvage something from our failed marriage, maybe even try to talk me out of divorcing her. Sitting in the dimly lit room with just the kitchen light in the background, I was just chilling with my drink, thinking about my life and the future. I'm still pretty young and have a chance to start a family like I've always wanted. My career is going well and things aren't too bad overall, but I still feel kinda down. It looks like she's in denial and about to hit rock bottom. A few minutes later, I heard her coming downstairs and watched as she walked into the living room and sat in front of me. I reached up and turned on a light. "So, are you ready?" "All right, spill the beans." "Why did you do it?" she asked. "Yeah, I don't know. The first time, I promised myself I wouldn't do it again. But then we started meeting up for drinks after work, and you know how things go when alcohol is involved. It seemed thrilling, and it became easier each time. I think hearing Sally talk about how good it felt to cheat on her ex-husband made me curious to try it. I should have known better after she told me that her infidelity was the reason they got divorced. What the hell happened? Why did you cheat on me? Did we not talk about being faithful, trustworthy, and respectful before we got married? Did you not understand our vows to only be with each other? If you had a problem with it, why didn't you tell me? I wasted 5 years on you and now I have to find someone else to marry. Hopefully, this time I can find someone who actually gets what marriage means. Come on Jim, can't we figure out a way to work through this? I love you and don't want you to leave me. I want to have kids with you. But let's get one thing straight, you can't call me pet names anymore. You lost that privilege when you let him in. Do you get it? I was getting annoyed with her denial about our divorce, but I had to keep calm and stay classy. Speaking of kids, when do you think you'll know if you're preggers? Dang, this is the second time tonight I caught her giving me that look like she can't believe what she just heard. Oh my gosh, you know. Yeah, I know, Mona. Why do you think I faked that business trip? I wanted you to feel some hurt. That's the main reason I'm divorcing you. You purposely tried to get knocked up by your side piece. You were probably hoping I'd forgive you after waiting a day for him to do his thing and then expect me to take care of your side piece's kid. Well, that ain't happening. What you did was shady as hell, like the ultimate betrayal a wife can pull on her man. It was straight up disrespectful to me. I can't forgive you for that, no way. Even if it was a one-time thing, maybe I could have forgiven you. But you kept on cheating, you got hooked on it. I can't trust you ever again, even if you go to therapy for 20 years. So, got anything to say for yourself to make it better? You messed up big time, she said through tears rolling down her face. That's it, I've already started the process with Ed Willie to get the divorce papers ready. They should be good to go by Monday. We'll split everything 50-50 and there won't be any spousal support, even if you're knocked up. I won't be taking care of your kid. Do you agree to this deal? It seems fine. I'll talk to a lawyer before I sign anything, but it sounds okay, she cried. All right then, I'll crash in the spare room until it's official. Hey, we're breaking up for now. I'm gonna start looking for my own place. You can stay here and have fun with your flings after I leave. It's done between Derek and me, I figured that out from your emails. It's a shame you didn't end it sooner. Tomorrow, I'll go talk to your parents and brother and set the record straight. I don't want you spinning a story that makes it all my fault. They need to know what kind of daughter they have. If you're pregnant, I'll figure out a way to let your coworkers and our friends know too. What you did to me, oh no, she started crying again. I got up and went upstairs to bed. The next morning, I woke up early and left the house before she woke up, taking a copy of the emails and motel records with me. She had cried most of the night and must be exhausted by now. I had breakfast at IHOP. From now on, I would be eating out a lot, so I figured I'd better get used to it. Taking my time over my coffee, I waited until 7:30 and headed over to Mona's parents. They were early risers, so I didn't think it would be a pain to show up early. I knocked on the kitchen door and saw they were chowing down on breakfast. Mona's dad motioned for me to come in when he saw me. Once I stepped inside, they pointed to an empty chair at the table while Mona's mom poured me a cup of coffee. What brings you here so early, Jim? Mona's dad asked. No breakfast for me. I already ate at IHOP. I've got some bad news that I wanted to tell you in person, I replied. What's the news? Mona's mom asked. She dropped the coffee pot she was still holding and it smashed on the floor, breaking into pieces. Divorce? Why, Jim, surely you're not serious. You were planning to start a family, she exclaimed. I found out that she's been cheating on me for the past few months and she might already be pregnant by her lover, I explained. Mona's younger brother, Simon, entered the kitchen and overheard my statement. He exclaimed and they all stared at me as if I had just announced the end of the world. They all started talking at once. Are you serious? Where is she? Can't you figure this out? Who is the other guy? They bombarded me with questions and I did my best to answer. Yes, I'm sure I have emails and motel records to prove it. She admits it too. She's probably at home right now unless she's gone to her friend Sally for sympathy. I don't think I can figure this out because I'm pretty sure she tried to get pregnant by him and passed the baby off as mine. Husbands can never forgive their wives for cheating, especially if the lover is Derek Matthews, the head librarian who's also married with kids. Mona's mom quickly grabbed the phone, saying she's calling her daughter right now. She couldn't believe her daughter could do something so terrible. I wish you would handle this, I told her. Not only did she ruin our marriage, but probably his too. I found out where Derek Matthews lived and drove to his place, parking in front of their little bungalow. I walked up to the front door with the evidence in hand. Yo, I rang the bell and Derek answered the door, all teary-eyed. He was like, "Can I help you?" I told him, "I want to talk to your wife and give her something, Mr. Matthews." He was like, "Sorry, my wife ain't here. Give it to me and I'll pass it on." But I was like, "I know Mona called you and said I was coming. You can't stop me from getting this info to your wife or talking to her. Better let her come to the door, or I'll have to take legal action against you." So, he was all like, "Hey, Marge, someone's here to see you," and then he turns to me and goes, "You scoundrel." No, Mr. Matthews, you're the scoundrel for messing around with my wife and trying to get her pregnant. You've ruined my marriage, and I hope I can do the same to yours. I just let out a sigh and he walked away as his wife came up. She was like, "What's up, Mrs. Matthews? I gotta tell you something, your man's been fooling around with my wife." So, basically, my wife and I are splitting up. I found some emails between her and some other dude, proving they were having an affair. I also have a list of all the times they met up at a motel. When I told her about it, she was shocked and asked if I was sure. I told her to ask her husband, Mr. Matthews, who was standing right behind her. He started crying and apologizing to her. It was a pretty sad scene, and I couldn't help but feel sorry for her too. Sorry to say I'm sorry too, Mrs. Matthews, that we ended up with such terrible spouses. I also feel bad for you and your kids. Just a heads up, my wife might be pregnant by your husband. I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I gave her the package and told her she could do whatever she wanted with it, then I walked away. She looked really sad and I wished there was a way to protect her from all this. I accomplished what I needed to do and headed back home. Mona's car was gone and I didn't see it. I didn't give a damn about where she went. Not too long ago, I couldn't function without her by my side or knowing she was safe somewhere else. But now, I couldn't care less. I changed my clothes and started mowing the lawn. Update: turns out Mona was pregnant and she went against her family's wishes by getting an abortion. This caused her to become distant from her family. Our divorce went through as I suggested, and now I'm single again, looking for a new wife. After being betrayed by someone I thought I could trust blindly, I'm now cautious. Man, I'm having a tough time figuring out what qualities I should look for in a new partner. I've been going to therapy and studying moral psychology to try and understand better. Not sure if it'll make a difference, but I'm still on the hunt. Oh, and I had a chance to get back at Mona 2 years after we split. I found out she was engaged, so I told her fiancé all about the crap she put me through in our marriage. He ended up calling off the engagement, which felt like a small win for me. I've got some friends who will keep me updated on her whereabouts. Man, the Matthews didn't end up getting divorced, but I heard she's got him under her thumb. I guess having kids can make you think twice about splitting up. I'm just glad I found out the truth about Mona before we started our own family.